Hello everyone, this is a short video that helps you to understand HTML forms in a fast and easy way, and also it helps you to do the corresponding assignment. So far we have been able to create a static web page which allows us to give some information and data, to show some information and data to our users. But in most cases, we want to gather some data from our users. To do that, we need web forms. You can see web forms almost in any website nowadays. Forms make websites interactive. They let users input data and send it to a server. Search boxes, account login pages, shopping filters, and comment sections are just a few examples of web forms. So far, we have been able to create some HTML pages. To view HTML pages, we can either enter their address in the address bar of a browser, or we can provide some links to that page. Whenever a user enters the address of the page or clicks on a corresponding link, the browser makes a request and sends the request to the server. The request was sent based on a protocol. We have two common protocols, GET and POST protocols. Those are the name of protocols. Whenever you type an address of a website or click on a hyperlink, browsers makes a GET request to a server. On the server side, the server extract the request, find the corresponding file, read the file, and send the file as is to the browser. The browser get the HTML codes, interpret them, and display a page based on the HTML code that it received. On the other hand, when you provide HTML form for your users, the users fill the form and submit the form by clicking on the submit button or by clicking a specific button that executes a JavaScript code that submits the form to the server. In this case, browser, based on the form type, will make a GET request or a POST request to the server. So when we dealing with web forms, the request to the server can be done through GET protocol or POST protocol. The server receives the request, unpacks the request, and executes a code based on the request on the server. To process the request on the server, you need to know a server-side language that is used in website development, like PHP, a specific version of Python, or a specific version of JavaScript, Java or Node.js or Ruby, something like this. These code, after execution, will create some HTML tags on the fly and will send the result back to users in the form of some HTML tags and CSS files. Browser will get those HTML tags and style sheets and interpret the result as an HTML page to our users. To create a web form, you need to use a form tag. A form tag actually works like a container for your web form, for the elements of your web form. In the content section of the form element, you usually need to type some labels and create some controls. Button, checkbox, radio button, combo box are examples of controls in programming. One of the common way to create controls is using input tags. Here is an example of a web form. In this form, the ID of the form is login form, which is not required. We see an action attribute and a method attribute. Actually, action and methods are kind of mandatory attributes that you need to specify for any form element. Action specifies the address of the file which is supposed to receive the content of this form and process it. So here when we said action equal do login.php, it means when a user submits this form on the server side, the content of do login.php file must be executed and process the data and then create some result in the form of HTML, usually in the form of HTML and CSS codes. And method specifies the way that the content of the form is supposed to be submitted to the server, supposed to be delivered to the server. And as I said, it can be either get or post. As you see, we have some label elements and we have some input elements. You need to specify a value for the type attribute. In fact, the type attribute specifies the type of control that are supposed to be created for this HTML element. Okay, let me explain this stuff with an example. I go to Visual Studio Code. Here I have an HTML file. I want to create a form. So I need a form element. So I type form. I said we need to specify two attributes for any form element. One of them is action, which is actually the destination address that is supposed to process the content of this form. For now, let me type let me type this.html and method, which can be either get or post. Let's start with get method. And if you preview this page, you will see nothing because nothing is in the form and form is just a virtual concept. Now let's create a control. So I said we can use input tag to create a variety of controls. And the type attribute actually specifies what kind of controls do we want to create. Text creates a text box for us that allows users to enter whatever they want, including text, numbers, and different symbols. If we want the value of a control to be processed at the server side, we need to assign a name for that control. If a control doesn't have a name, its value will be ignored when user submits the form to the server. So let's say fname. To submit a form, we add another input element. This time the type should be submit. Submit creates a specific button. When user clicks on such buttons, the form will be submitted to the server. In this case, we don't need to assign any name for this control because we don't want to send its value to the server. If you assign a value for a submit button, it works as the caption of the button. Now the caption of the button is send. Let me add another control input, type text of type text, and this time I name it L name. You see that the controls doesn't have any caption by default, so we should add some text, or later you will see that we will add some labels. We can simply type, for example, first name, whatever we want, before the control, last name. Let's test the form with a real browser like Google Chrome. As you know, some browsers like Google Chrome have specific tools for developers. In case of Google Chrome, if you open its menu and go to the More Tools submenu, you can find the option Developer Tools. If you click on it, you can see a bunch of possibilities. Here we are looking for the network traffic between your browser and the server. Okay, look at here. I type Reza Raha, and when I press the submit button, you see that here the browser issues a request to the server and looks for a file that is specified in the action attribute of the form. In the action, we said that this.html. So the browser asks server to execute the file this.html. And as you see, after the name of the file, there is a question mark. And after the question mark, you can see a list of pairs, name value pairs. As you see, in each pair, the first element is the name of a control, and the second element is the value of the control. You see, we had two controls, F names and L names. The value of the first one was Reza, and the value of the second one was Raha. I go back and change it to, for example, Ben. You see this time the value of F name is Ben and the value of L name is Raha. If you look at the network traffic here, you see that this request is sent by get method. Okay, let's create this.html to prevent this error. Create this.html, and here I just type welcome, and then I add a link to the main page, in this case temp.html. I save the change. This time, when I submit the form, actually the server, in this case our own computer, finds the file this.html and passes these values to that file. Since this file is an HTML file, it cannot process these data. But if it was a PHP code or Python code, it could process these data. Now, one more time. I click here. You see this is the header and this is the payload of the request corresponding to controls in the form. Now let me go back and change method to post. I save the change. And this time I type, for example, Ellie, and press the submit button. This time you don't see the parameters after the destination file name. When you choose post, the data of a form will be sent as a payload of the request, but not in the header, not in the URL of the request. So users will not see the parameters that you are sending. But here, by using this developer tool, we can see actually what data are being transferred to the server. And here you see that this time the method is post. Each one of these protocols have their own usage, but in this class we are not going to talk about them.